if you scan the cultural, atmosphere at the moment, so what's popping up in your mind?
If I scan the cultural atmosphere, I kind of always feel that we're in this sort of apocalyptic potential.
Right.
So I always feel that things are falling apart and things are being discovered. And John Vervaeke has a term, he calls it reinventio, so that you rediscover something that's been lost, and that you and that and also you invent something new. So I think that we're going very far back, and then we're also being propelled into the future at the same time. So there's this sort of archaic revival,
Right.
rediscovering symbols that have disappeared, and then also this very futuristic thing going on at the same time. So that's what kind of interests me, is this sort of combining the traditional with the futuristic.
Right. I mean, Zach Stein, he talks about, in the time between worlds, the old world doesn't really work anymore and the new world is just emergent. But it's like, I'd always ask myself if I can talk about this because it's so hyperbolic. But, in many ways, I feel that it is a cultural world war we are living in. Like, what Rainier de Resta said, like this warm war where it's not about a military exchange, but a war on narrative, a war on storytelling, a war on which kind of narratives persist and which one are vanishing and stuff like that. And so we're like engulfed in this apocalyptic thing where, everything is up for grabs, basically.
Yeah, it's a war. Well, everything is up for grabs, including kind of our humanity in this, in a sense,
Right.
because of AI, because of machine intelligence, because of all this sort of technology. There's a way that we could be completely destroyed by technology, and there's a way that we could become very powerful and creative with technology. And so there's this really double-edged sword of creativity and destruction happening
Right.
simultaneously.
Now I'm just reading this book by Christopher Ryan, and so this book is called Civilized to Death, and he has like this approach that and he starts with the conquistadores and with Christopher Columbus, and he goes into detail like how many million people the Spaniards slaughtered in the New World. It's like, and they killed for fun, they raped for fun. It's like, they were not, it was not a thing of humans, but it was a thing of civilization. And so he has like this whole thing that we already destroyed through technology, basically everything, right? And so that we have that we are still clinging to this progress idea. But if you actually like have some indigenous people or people who sometime like lived with indigenous people, it's always, this is the better way, the indigenous way to live, because it's so, we are still tribes people in this weird environment. And so he views society as a sickness, basically, and so technology and all of this. And I find this quite interesting.
Yeah, well, and also the literal thing that all the plagues and pandemics that the Europeans brought as well. So it seems like that we bring the plague with us. I remember, like, there's a really cool thing. Freud and Jung they were crossing the Atlantic Ocean or something on a ship to visit America for the first time, and Freud looked at Jung and said, "We've come to bring the plague," and I thought that was quite interesting.
Wow.
The plague would be like modernity, would be like looking at being able to see the stuff that was primarily unconscious before.
Right. But the point he's making, of course, there were like plagues brought to the New World because we were already living in cities and were exposed to bacteria and all this shit, and the indigenous people were not. But, to a way larger extent, we treated those people like animal, and killed them. And it's like, to go to what was he saying? To go to Christopher Columbus Museum without, and those museums don't mention, you know, the Holocaust, like the 50 million people he slaughtered. That's basically the same then going to a Hitler museum without having a mention of that he created the Holocaust. Right? It's super weird that we have like still this conception.
We have a positive conception almost.
Yeah, but he was like, and there are still like these letters he wrote home, and so they have like this tone that's like, oh, these Indian people, they are so nice and they are so happy and content with their life, and they are so good-hearted, you know, and it's so easy to enslave them. Mm-hmm. You know, that's amazing.
Well, I guess the Europeans didn't have a moral advantage; they had a technological advantage,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you know, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we come to this, but it's like you can view civilization as something that is, you know, faulty in its conception. You know, if you look at, he tells the story of those tribes who are basically like, you know, because they're so embedded in their environment through thousands of generations that they, you know, that they can be happy with whatever happens. You know, we've caught something today. Let's be happy. Today was you know, bad weather day. You know, we're laughing. You know, so but we have.
Well, I think it's undoubtable that those people are happier than we are in a way. I mean, and healthier and probably and you know,
right.
Even though they might die by accident, or at the hunt or whatever. You just have to look at pictures and photos of indigenous people, and
right,
like the Inuit. And you imagine this harsh climate that they lived in, but then you look at their faces, and you see like joyful people, right?
Right.
Who are part of a tribe and are have not been shattered, broken. They haven't had their they haven't been broken by this progress, this insane progress that happened very recently. Their culture was exactly the same for 10,000 years before.
Yeah, exactly.
Before Christianity, before anything else. So there's this powerful sort of. I mean, I guess that's why indigenous culture. Perhaps we need to look at it, because we're moving into this this period of existential threat, where the environment is caving in, and so we need to learn how to survive in a sense, and we need to learn how to survive and be sustainable,
right?
Or recycle or give back rather than just take and consume. And I mean, maybe that's a cliche, but because also you could also say that if you look at indigenous tribes, there's a lot of homicide, and there's even virgin sacrifices and cannibalism, and so that stuff all exists right in indigenous culture as well.
Right. No, but we are at the point where we can't really integrate the results of what we did in the last 250 years, you know, with industrialization and climate change and so on. Nobody knows how to deal with all of that, and the emerging technologies, and this just so much in it. You know, we were so, you know, modernity was like, at least ideally, it was such a positive, you know, euphoric thing that happened. Oh, we can dominate the world, and we develop technologies, and you know, we are the greatest on this. You know, it's like we're the greatest that humanity ever was. But now, 250 years later, we see what we have done. You know, and so all the old institutions and politics and economics, they don't work anymore. And so we're like confronted with this thing that, you know, we are confronted with the consequences of our own, you know, making. And so we are not owning this thing anymore, but the thing owns us.
So what is the way out then? What do you think? You know, the problem has been described, you know, in
multiple ways,
and many people from Nietzsche onwards, right? The problem of, maybe earlier, the problem of modernity, the problem of a modern, you know, of the death of God, or whatever you want to call it, has, you know, Kierkegaard. Everyone's described the problem, but what do you think the solution is? what do we have to do to, not solution, because solution is an ugly word, but what do we have to do to redeem ourselves, to save our own souls?
I don't know, I might say something very politically incorrect, but the point is that I think that the planet doesn't care about our solutions, right?
No.
So because it's like, you know, it takes the planet 10, maybe 200, maybe 500 years to, you know, regenerate itself, more or less. So it's like, it's about our niche, right?
Okay, so what do we do within our niche?
So exactly. So when you look
to
at
have a more soulful existence that isn't existentially destructive,
right? And so, you know, and our biology is not interested in some meta models or narratives or storytelling. You know, what is the only thing that
Brett Weinstein would say our biology is genocidal, or you know.
No, let me make my point. I think the only thing that we can do is to fornicate. The more the merrier.
Okay.
I mean, because you have to see, like, there were so many wars and plagues and sicknesses and environmental disasters with and without our making, and we did one thing: we outfucked everything. Literally, that's the reason why we're here. We outfucked everything.
We outfucked everything. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Can you unpack? Outfucked? What?
I mean, you have to see, like, there was like the First World War, right? And the devastating thing for the population of the planet. And right after the First World War, I think we talked already about this, you know, came the Spanish flu, decimating, you know, the rest, you know, I don't know, like 50% of the rest. So, you know, but this was like only a tiny bump in the population development, because what did we do? We just start fucking. Same with Ice Age, you know, and same with.
I see. Yeah.
Same
and
with the Ice Age.
Was invented, and so the population went crazy.
Yeah, and so we just, you know, we just keep fucking, you know, and producing children, and it's like, as long as we do that,
we'll survive.
Huh? Yeah, I mean, it's like that's the only way why we survive. You know, it's like women putting on lipstick and fake tits and you know, high heels, and men. It's like evolutionary biology. It's like we, you know, this enhancement of sexual attributes and economic attributes. And
so you're saying we need another sexual revolution or something, Tom? What's going on here? What are you proposing here? Just everybody have sex and it'll be okay, or what?
I don't know. It would at least be more fun, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, probably, but also more painful, because sex and pain are, you know, there'd be more pleasure, but there's also the other side of that as well.
But maybe I'm too, you know, because I'm reading this book, and I always have like this thing when I read something, you know, I'm trying to emulate. I try to understand what the author is saying, and so what Chris Ryan in his book Sex at Dawn, he has like this whole different approach about sexuality, and that our human nature is not monogamic by nature, and core family and by nature, but it's more a social bonobo, you know, sex for conflict resolution kind of situation we are actually involved in. And so it's like, and maybe the bonobo way would be a way, better way to deal, you know, with ourselves
and with our usual pair bonding and marriage and you know, usual taboos we have around just having sex, because like we're unlike chimpanzees in the sense that if we're in a room, we don't start pulling each other's eyeballs out and just humping each other. We have this sort of sexuality is different than just fucking or copulation, right? There's because a whole psychological thing, and there's a bunch of taboos, and you know, even if you're involved in polyamorous relationships,
exactly, because the mode operandi would be like completely different, because, you know, you could make the argument that a whole chunk of the civilizatory problems that we have derive from the fact that there is like you know, that sexual mates and partners are scarce. right? And so we have to compete economically. So we have to earn more money, you know, to be like valuable on the mating market. Females have to be way more selective that they actually are, you know, because they are also involved in this arms race, you know. And so it's like, but what would happen if a tribe, say 150 people, like would have like an open polyamorous bonobo kind of policy? You know, you wouldn't have people, you know, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates kind of people who are like, you know, amassing that much wealth to be like attractive on the mating market.
So then the question is kind of like, what would sexuality look like in a post-capitalist environment if there wasn't that that capitalist dynamic to sex, right?
I don't know how it looked like, but it's like,
well, I mean, going retribalization and all that. So if we're going back to tribalization, if you know, we seem to be thinking more tribally than we did 10 years ago because of the internet, you know, creating all these little tribes everywhere, and so that's happening in a virtual space. Maybe after some time that will actually happen in the world as well.
Yeah, I mean, like one thing that is obvious, that our beauty standards would change. I mean, you're living basically in the countryside in Fontainebleau, but I'm living. You have to imagine I'm living in a bubble in Spain, which is a bubble of Europe, which is a bubble of the world. And so, you know, the women that actually flaunt their existence and their body here, that's just like, it's too much for the male brain to see that, you know. It's too much, really, because it's like you can't first thing, you can't really look, and they're so enhanced with their biological attributes and with their beauty standards and with their way of presenting themselves. And it's like, you know, but this has to change in a way, because like if you have like a more healthy approach to woman, it's like you can find beauty in every woman, you know. It's like you can, but it is like, so Palma is like a city where only like Ferraris walk, but that's not normal, and that's so damaging for the human mind, for the male mind, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like a cybernetic version of what sexuality is, or cybernetic is probably the wrong word, cyborg version of sex. So that, you know, you have this sort of, you know, very unnuanced, you know, extreme sort of signaling, and which has no subtlety to it whatsoever, and no art to it whatsoever. It's just a bunch of cliches, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, I'm always making this joke that there must be a factory of, you know, 9s and 10s here, because it's like, it just, you know, it's like they're all so, you know, what is the word for that? You know, it's just too much on information, you know, the way that with the high heels and with, you know, super well toned, and, you know, it's like everything, it's just too much, you know. It just, because that's all these Instagram girls that come here for their plastic, photos, for the photos, and they're just, you know, so well groomed, you know. It's
yeah, maybe that's kind of scary for us, because, you know, we're from another generation before Instagram, so we didn't have this constant concern with grooming, right? I mean, there was a creative aspect to it where you'd get dressed up and you'd wear cool things, and you'd go out, and you know, that would be fun, but there wasn't this sort of extreme competition to be beautiful or muscular, or go to the gym all the time, and that kind of sort of, you know, very artificial and pumped up and version of sexuality was operative of that time, at that time, but not so extreme or so,
especially because those women are,
we have to become more human or something. We have to learn to become more human and less like extraterrestrials,
exactly,
in our sexuality,
right? and they're competing mostly with themselves, you know. It's like they are
that's the narcissistic aspect.
Yeah, they are their own, you know, judges, and you know, it's just, you know, the aggressiveness of the sexual signaling. It's, you know, it's and the hard part is to be a man and to be exposed like this. I mean, I like a good-looking woman. That's not the point, but it's just like, you know, you can't. It's just this hammering, like, and it goes so deep because it's like a, you know, like a pop song.
It's sort of like porn. It's like real life porn walking around the street.
Right.
Because it comes from porn, doesn't it? I mean, 30% of the internet, that's where all this stuff comes from. It's
right.
Sort of pornification, Alexander's word of society.
Right.
So it's this constant titillation. You're supposed to be titillated all the time.
Right.
That gets tiring and boring, and kind of, there's an ennui to it as well, right?
Right. Oh, it's like to be. I mean, it's the same thing, because if you look at Marvel movies, that's, you know, porn as well in a kind of way. You have like this hunky guys and this porno-like woman. It's like,
but they've managed to kind of finesse this stuff to the extreme without having a soul whatsoever.
Right.
like without any soul whatsoever. They've managed to make the most, convincing fake shit.
Right.
It just gets more and more convincing, more and more pseudo real, and also more and more transparently fake. And then,
I mean, yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, we obviously belong to the old white man demographic, kind of, sort of. But the point is, you know, you find this phenomenon even in pop music. It's like they know, you know, because you mentioned Alexander, you know now. What a song must have, you know, hooks wise, melody wise, to make a hit. And so there are like 3-4 people in Stockholm who provide all those songs for Rihanna and Beyonce and Lady Gaga, like 10 years back, because it's like they're like these hit song producers, because then by now, we have such a corpus of pop music that we can see this song works because of this, and so we now know the elements of all of this. And it's the same with movies. So
but you can never know. That's the other thing is that you can't really. You could get you could get a lot of fake perfection,
right?
But you can never really simulate art. I mean,
no, that's the point. Yes,
but art does have this unique quality to it that's surprising, and you know, I mean, Bob Dylan was this kind of greasy kid that drove everyone crazy, and he was just like annoying, and he had this scratchy voice, and who would even have noticed that he was in? Nobody would have, but that he had something to express. And if there wasn't for, I don't know what the guy's name was who discovered him at Columbia Records, you know, so it's just like this ineffable quality, this quality of what Gilliam calls soulful quality,
right?
Is not, you can't copy it, you can't create it with a machine, you just can't do that. So people, but you can for money, and you can for, you can for effect, and you can make a lot of, money doing that.
Right.
But you never create something timeless.
Right. No, but it's like, that's the reason why there's
like
Katy
as
Perry.
you say, you like the Beatles. The Beatles are kind of timeless. Nobody can copy the Beatles.
No, of course not.
And
no.
it's not that they were good singers or good players or anything. It was just this
shut up
quality.
they're fantastic.
No, they're good. Yeah, they're good, but they're not. But there's millions of people that could do something similar and can copy them and do something like them. But nobody could quite could quite imitate that very unique chemistry of what they were. Right.
Right. No, but it's like you're right in the sense that there's Katy Perry on the commercial end, and then you have like artists like Noga Erez, this Israeli singer. She's like a proper artist. Her voice is not. Her voice is a little bit raunchy, but she has like this whole new, Israeli understanding of rhythm and feeling, and it's just amazing because she's a proper artist.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
And so to come back, it's like, to be less plastic and less commercial and less Gucci and, and to be more, understand who we are as people, because it's like, I don't know how big your social environment is, but I can guess that it's probably not 150 people like the number of the Dunbar, the
well,
tribe.
online it is. I mean,
No, but I mean like
the
on
virtual space, yes, but not in my local neighborhood. No.
that's what I mean. And
Yeah.
so it's like, so, but we
In
live
fact,
like,
I'd probably, if I would look at my virtual space, I would say it's probably exactly that.
right.
It's probably about 150 people who we are on familiar terms with and know each other's functions, and
Right.
so there is a virtual tribe, but the weird thing is we are disembodied, right?
Right.
As McLuhan would say, we're
Yeah.
not together in one place.
Right. And so I mean, you could make the, like Alexander, like the good case that that's a good technological development, but at the same time it's like we lived like for 40,000 years or even longer, we lived in closed you know, in spaces, in closed spaces, like actual tribes. And so
Yeah.
you know, this civilization that's just like a tiny and thin layer on top of our archaic nature. And so it's like,
Yes.
and so we're like, it's very hard to content with this, you know, and very hard to
be content with it, right? Because
Yeah.
actually, that's like Freud, the title of Freud's book, Civilization and Its Discontents.
Yeah.
Because civilization is not a happy thing. It's like full of discontent, isn't it? It's full of.
So what's
I don't know if archaic people experience depression. If they did, it would be like something like, oh, they've lost their soul, right? Or
right.
they've you know, and they'd go see the shaman or something. But the kind of depression that civilized people experience on a daily basis is kind of radical, I think.
So why do you think we did it? Why did we, you know, what is that urge for civilizations? Like why?
Yeah. Again, well, maybe it moves in two ways. There's a positive evolution, and then there's an increased fragmentation and decadence, and you know, the two things are happening at the same time. You know, like the Zen phrase that first mountains and rivers are mountains and rivers, and then they're not mountains and rivers again, and then they're mountains and rivers again. So maybe we're in the not mountains and rivers period.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Like we're in this, again, we're in the in-between world period. We're in the sort of negation. And then we have to rediscover, I guess, perhaps our primordial natures.
Mm.
And that's but then we won't be like we were before. We'll be something else. But we'll also be connected to our source. Maybe that sounds a little bit.
No, but what is it that we want to discover? I ask differently.
Oh, we want to know who we are. We want to know what we're capable of. We're just radically creative. And like I was reading Carl Jung, and he talks about the anima.
Right.
The anima is life. He says it's the archetype for life. It's not good or evil at all. It's
right.
both. There's no good or evil involved in life whatsoever. It's not good.
Right.
You know, there's good and evil, but there's no good and evil. It's just a process of trickery, and you know, you're always slipping. We're always falling. We'll never get it right. Then we'll come up with something incredible. And
right.
So it's just a never-ending process of creativity, I think.
See, I told you, it's the fucking.
Yes, it's a never-ending process of erotic eros, you know, erotic becoming.
Right.
Which, you know, could be fucking, and it's not necessarily. I mean, fucking is sort of often is exhausting of that.
But is that
that's why people go to monasteries and try to channel that into other things. But is
that a common misconception, or is that the actual theory of Jung, that we get attracted to those people, to those, say in our case, women that inhabit that anima that we want to discover in ourselves? Is that the common misconception, or is that the idea?
That we want to discover the anima in ourselves. Yeah. Well, because
the theory is that we are looking for a partner through which, because the partner is already embodying that archetype,
Yeah.
Like at a certain level, that we search for, you know, that archetype to unlock it in ourselves, so to speak.
Yeah. To unlock our own creativity.
Right.
Which is and destruction, right?
Right.
Both. Like not just, it's not a positive thing. It'll fuck you up.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
Because I guess, because a man is like, has a certain amount of, I don't remember the biology. I'm not good at biology, but chromosomes, but it also has you also have this feminine part which we repress in ourselves, which we need to discover in the
That's
world.
what I'm saying. Yes. Mm.
Yeah. And so the enema is that, but also the enema is just form, embodiment, stuff, just life.
Right.
So the feminine is that. It's
right.
Form. Masculine is emptiness, in the sense of it's becoming something or
right. Yeah, because that's like a thing that I'm always kind of think about, because I was, in a serious relationship for, I think, 13 years, and I was quite content in that, but I was also kind of, I was doing my stuff and I was writing books and everything, but when that ended, it was like another part of me came online, and that was sleeping at that point. It's like, because in a long relationship, it's like you're, something gets, sleeping kind of way, and she was like doing yoga and meditation and tantra, but there was something that got unlocked after the separation, maybe because I had to find myself in the world again. But now it's like I have so many female friends, at different stages, say, of anima, right? And so it's like I have like this Russian friend. She lives in Barcelona, and she's like this. I always make the joke that she's Russian mafia, or like this. Like she has like this deep understanding of the world. A little bit of gypsy magic is in there. It's like a fascinating woman, like super wise in a kind of way, and has a completely different approach to the world. And then I have like different females, that I like to engage in, because it's like I want to engage with different types of me at the same time, because I cherish those where these conversations lead me to and lead us to when we talk with each other.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was, something that I, didn't have when I was in a serious relationship, So
so does that mean that, because I'm in a relationship of what you would call stable attachment, right?
Right.
Which means I've been married for many years, so I'm not in that situation. But I wonder if the situation that you're in right now, is that sustainable? Because I know there are people who can do that, can have multiple partners, and would you want that, or would you want to have a stable attachment relationship? I mean, what would be more fulfilling in the end? Because I find my relationship very fulfilling.
Right.
But there is, there is the sacrifice of having one instead of many.
Right.
right. Which I've accepted,
right.
fully. On the other hand, so your situation is you have many but not one.
Right.
So what is preferable?
I don't know.
What is the best way to be?
I don't know, because
maybe it's different for different people. Maybe it's better for you to have many instead of one, and maybe
don't get me wrong. I was very happy in the long term when I was 13 years, sure. and so because of that, I know that I don't have relationship issues, because like 13 years is a long time to live with one person, and it's like,
I wasn't accusing you of that.
No. It's just like what I'm
wondering. Like,
it's
where you want to be, who you want to be.
No, it's what I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, I know I can do that, and I know I was happy, but at the same time, now it's like, of course, there's a part of me who looks for some commitment, and for some stable thing, but at the same time, not being committed, that gives me so much free resources to do stuff that I really like, And that is because like I like my work and I like to write and I like to do podcasts and I like to do this and do this, you know, and all this kind of got unlocked in that kind of way by you know, by the separation, you know, it's like in some way I start to blossom in a way I didn't before.
Sure.
And so I'm at the moment I'm kind of conflicted, you know, because I have like these two things, and it doesn't really help to watch Jordan Peterson videos at that stage.
Well, you don't have kids,
right,
with the other one.
no.
So if you had kids with the other one, there would be another dimension that would enter into it perhaps.
Right.
But I don't know. But I'm not saying one is better than the. I'm not doing the Jordan. Like, I disagree with Jordan Peterson when he says, you know, you have to get married and have children if you want to be an adult. And he's very
right.
He's very categorical about that, and I think he's wrong, because I think there's different modes and different ways of being, and I think that's a very narrow sort of Christian take on relationships.
Right.
You know, I like a lot of other things that he says, but that's only his experience. He hasn't experienced the other side of that, right?
Right.
So you know, there's a lot of things are possible.
I don't have a fucking clue. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, you know, we never do we?
Yeah. Nobody knows what they're doing. So that's
we don't know what we're doing.
No.
We don't know what we're doing. Profoundly, we don't know what we're doing. We're profoundly unconscious, and we profoundly don't know what we're doing. You know, that's extraordinary. And we think we know what we're doing, which is also equally bizarre.
Exactly. Which brings me to my initial point. So we can't, because we don't know what we're doing, we can't find the right solutions. And so the only thing we can fall back onto is, like, you know,
Damon, the muse.
Yeah, the daemon and the fucking, and both.
And we've got to take a risk, and then and the fucking. Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
It's the theme I want to bring into this, you know, thing. To be.
That's I guess. Well, I mean, I would say yes, but also the larger ramifications of that, right? Not just the fucking.
Right.
Sure. I mean, we want to penetrate life, and also, you know, that's the male side of us, is we want to penetrate the earth. We want to put our seed in the earth, and then we also, and then the female side of us, we want to be penetrated. It's the enjoyer and the enjoyed.
I mean, I think to bring both things together, or to bring Peterson and Alexander Barth on one page, it's like, I think, you know, to physically bring the seed into a woman, and, you know, which would be the sexual act, but, you know, the male way of confronting chaos would be the daemon way, right? It's like our, you know, original way of confronting chaos and fight with chaos and bring something new into the world. This is only by, you know, possible through the diamond. And so it's like two things on the same coin, you know, two sides of the same coin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the diamond, you know, the diamond is not good or evil. That, again, the diamond could be, you know, it's beyond ourselves somehow, right?
Right.
It's what's pulling us into the future. It's what's calling to us.
That was one thing.
There's this calling, right? There's this calling, and the diamond calls us, and it could be a siren that's going to smash you on the rocks, or it could be an introduction to this fantastic new world. It could be many things.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's like that. That's one thing where I saw that Jordan Peterson is. I wouldn't say initiated, but that he's like something like a shaman who has some vista of the future, because there was one moment where he was talking about the daemon, and he had such a peculiar way of describing it. And he said, it's something that always lies in the future and which pulls you into the future. And he said that's so, you know, that's one of those mysteries of life that, it boggles the mind of philosophers and psychologists for centuries, for now, because like the idea that there's a deep part of you that is always in the future and knows and calls you from the future, so you can blossom into the future and to become what you always were. But at that point, the diamond already called still again from the future, and that is such a weird,
it's constantly eluding you. It's elusive in some sense, right?
Right.
It's pulling you in this to the future, but then when you think you've got there, it's somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is such an interesting.
It's always shifting. It's never. There's never any final destination, because it's constantly creating and destroying, creating parts of you and destroying parts of you at the same time.
Right. And so you have to, to be able to listen to that, because the more you can, the clearer you can listen to his voice, the rounder your personality becomes in the end. And that kind of dialogical, or say dialectic between your ego and your soul in the future, that's super interesting, I think. And he framed it, Peterson framed it in a kind of way, it's like, yeah, I mean, like, whatever the people are saying, shit, because that is obviously true. And that is like,
James Hillman is this fantastic Jungian. He writes about this stuff so well. Like, you should read him about when he talks about I guess Peterson was also very influenced on Jung too. But he talks about the pure and the sextet, and the pure is the golden youth, the eternal youth, right? This constant creativity, and the sextet is the wise old man, and those two are in constant dialectic with each other, right?
Okay.
So you could say that the ego or something, or just like the intentional or the rational, is constantly in this. There's this struggle between that, and there's this dialectic between that and the pure, which is the youthful, expressive, ever-present nowness, right, versus the maker, the planner, anyway. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is that dialectic.
And the fucking.
And then the fucking just kind of is sort of, the fucking is great, and unfortunate at the same time. It's tragic and beautiful.
The fucking is tragic. Why is that tragic?
Well, you just have to look at the expression of melancholy on somebody's face after they've made love. It's like there's the pleasure, and then there's extreme melancholy that happens at the same time. It's like you've touched the divine, and then the divine starts to move away.
Okay, that's the way you mean it. Yes.
Again, in the throes of life and ups and downs.
Interesting.
In the Tantra, they talk about the sun and the moon channels in the body, and they touch each other.
Right.
And that creates this incredible blissful feeling.
Yeah.
And in ordinary sexuality, it lasts, like, for men, like half a second.
Right.
But then you can extend that through these tantric practices, right? But that also that has its limitations as well at a certain point.
Interesting.
There's this whole pleasure pain sort of dynamic.
Right.
So.
Well. Yes. I have nothing to add to this.
We went pretty.